Tula, it's Shawnee here to teach you a little R&R, rest and relaxation yoga. You'll want to block if you have one. A strap is always good just in case. A bolster and maybe a couple blankets as well. We're going to be focusing in on the hips, doing some deep stretching and a little bit of mobility for the hips today. And we're going to actually start on our backs. So come onto your back. You can lie back with your legs straight onto the ground, or you can bend your knees, plant your feet on the ground, and let your knees fall towards one another, maybe taking your feet just a little bit wider. Hands can come out to your sides, palms face up. Last week we worked on connecting the back of the head to the ground and keeping the head parallel, so your face parallel with the ceiling. So make sure there's no ponytails in the way. And make sure you have a nice space underneath the back of the neck so that your C5 isn't pressing into the ground. And then wherever you are today, emotionally, mentally, maybe physically, just take a big inhale in through your nose, and then exhale out of your mouth. And do it again. Inhale and exhale. One more time. Inhale and exhale. And then coming back to your belly breaths, inhaling in through your nose, expand the belly and the ribs and the lungs. Exhale, squeeze the air out first. There's a lot of things going on right now in the world, obviously. I seem to have lost count over the days that we've been on lockdown, quarantine. I think our brains, our hearts, so our mental state and our emotional state, they are fighting to stay present, fighting to not do that monkey mind thing where you're spiraling, being anxious. At least that's where I am this week. There's a quote by Thoreau. It says something along the lines of, if we can still ourselves like very still, crystal clear water, that other beings, forest creatures, will gather around. They can see themselves reflecting back when they look at us. But when we throw a pebble out into the water and then it starts to ripple, maybe that pebble is anxiety, lack of control. It creates those ripples, and it takes away that sense of stillness. Hopefully through the breath and through our yoga practice, we can maintain that balance so that we can be that mirror for others so that they can find their balance and their stillness. It's hard. Hard to do. So from here, from our backs, walk your feet in so that your feet are now about sitting bone distance apart. Navel draws in. And you can keep your eyes closed if you want. Just take a big inhale. Exhale, engage the abdominals and lift the right leg. And then inhale to release. On your next exhale, navel draws in, lift the leg, inhale to release. And we're just going to go through that motion, a little march, slow moving march. We'll do a couple more here. And then this time, bring both feet down to the ground. And let's heel toe the feet out a little bit wider than hip distance apart, maybe about as wide as your mat. And we're just going to swish the knees side to side. My yoga teacher called them windshield wipers. And you can pause while you drop both knees. Or keep the movement going. I think in order to find some of that stillness that I'm talking about, we gotta let ourselves feel those emotions as well. So if we don't feel those emotions, if we don't be true to ourselves, take that time to process, I don't think we can ever truly find that stillness. So it's okay for us to be anxious, scared, mad. I was supposed to go to Disneyland. I'm mad. Bring both knees back to center. Draw both knees in. And just go ahead and rock side to side here a little bit. If we can process those though, feel them, and then we can come back to our practice, come back to the knowledge that right now there really isn't much we can do except for find peace within our day. All right, from here we're going to draw the right knee in, the left foot drops to the ground, and you're going to take your leg out wide. You can grab onto the back of your thigh as well. Kind of like a half happy baby. And if it feels nice, you can let your right leg or your opposite leg drop to the ground, so your left leg drops towards the ground, not all the way. And then we're just going to start to make some circles with the knees. And then go the opposite direction. Yeah, and then bring both knees back to center. Hug onto them. Let the weight of your legs settle you down. Sometimes having this weight can also be really therapeutic and beneficial when you're having a little bit of anxiety. Supportive. All right, we're going to drop the right foot down. Take the left leg out wide. And again, if you'd like, you can let that right leg fall out just a little bit. And then we're going to draw some circles. Go the opposite direction. And then bring both knees back together. Take your hands out wide. Drop both legs over to the right. If your left leg wants to hover here, you can take a block or a blanket and place it in between. Just make it really restful for yourself. And then when you're ready, navel draws in. We're going to bring both legs back over and drop them to the left. Again, propping with a block or a blanket, or not. And then when you're ready, on inhale, both knees come back to center. We're going to start with thread the needle. So you have both feet planted on the ground. Cross your right ankle above your left knee. Now we're going to start here with your right hand up onto your inner thigh. Right toes flex back towards your knee. And you're going to press your thigh away, create a little bit of space. We'll hold it here for about 3 breaths. And then keep it here. If you feel a great stretch here, stay here or draw both knees in. And we're going to do a little variation today. You're going to straighten your bottom leg. So your left leg straightens. And then you can take your right elbow, press it into your right leg. And then maybe work to draw the left leg back a little. Both feet are flexed and active. And then exhale, release the leg, release both legs there, and swish back and forth one more time. Other side, left ankle crosses above right leg. Take your left hand, press it into the left thigh, create space here and length. And then from here, both knees draw in. Straighten the right leg. Use your left elbow into your left thigh. Both legs are flexed. Keep pressing your right heel up towards the ceiling. And then exhale to release. Switch the knees one more time. From here, walk both of your feet together, let your knees open up. Interlace your fingers, press your palms up towards the ceiling. And just take a big stretch. Allow gravity to open up the inner thighs. Both knees draw in. And then you can either roll over to your right side and come up to seated, or you can rock up to seated. From here, we're going to come onto hands and knees. Hands under shoulders, knees under hips. Navel draws in. We're going to just shake the hips side to side. Let your head move too. Maybe move your head over towards opposite or towards the hip. Maybe like making a C with your body. Come back to center. So from here, from tabletop position, we're going to draw the navel in and then take your right leg out to the right. And we're just going to draw some circles with the leg. And some of that mobility. And then opposite direction. And then bring your leg back to center. Other side now. Left leg out. Draw circles. And go the other way. And back to center. From here, we're going to make our way into downward dog. Toes curl under, hips lift up and back. Maybe shake out the head a little bit. Relax in the shoulders. You can pedal your feet, shake out the hips. And then from here, we're going to float the right foot up. Press out through your right heel. Your leg doesn't have to be very high. In fact, to start, you want your hips square with the ground. So if you need to keep your leg a little bit lower, that's fine. And then keep it here, or as an option, bend your right knee. Turn your right knee up towards the ceiling so that your right foot is drifting over to the left cheek. Navel draws in, bring your foot forward in between your hands. From here, bring your hand to the ground, left hand to the ground or to a block. We're going to turn, spin the right toes to the right a little bit. Right hand comes onto your hip. And we're just going to keep it here. Roll the right shoulder back. Sometimes, if you're really super tight in your glutes like I am, feel it. Draw your shoulder blades together. Roll the tops of your shoulders back. And see if you can start to come into a little bit of a back bend here, pushing your bottom ribs forward. And then maybe you reach your right hand up. Don't push your right hand back. You want to go straight up here. Or if you want to try to find a little bit deeper, you can take your right hand to the back of your head, keep your shoulder rolled back, press your head into your hand. Exhale, come back to center. You can keep your block. Go ahead and come onto your back knee. We're going to pause here. So pad your back knee if you have achy knees. Remember, you want to be on the fleshy part of the knee, not right on the patella. So fleshy part of the knee. And we'll just hold it here. A little stretch or a deep stretch. I only have one block today because one of my children stole my blocks. It's yet to be found. And then we're going to shift the hips back. Little half splits pose, half monkey pose. Hands on either side of the leg or up onto blocks. And to get a good stretch, shift your sitting bones back towards your heel. Get a little bit of a deeper stretch along the calf muscle. Come back into your lunge, your low lunge on Jayasana. Back toes curl under, hands plant to the ground, downward dog. Check the shoulders and relax. Make sure you're keeping space between the top of your shoulder and your ears. Shoulder blades are onto the body, back of the body. Left foot floats up. Again, keep the foot low. If you need to, keep the hips parallel. Start by pressing out through the heel. Then as an option, bend your knee and open up the hips. Inhale, navel draws in on your exhale, and then bring the foot forward in between the hands. So we're going to keep our low lunge a little bit higher. Block underneath the right hand, left toes turn to the left. Left hand on the hip. Roll that shoulder back. And breathe. Maybe reach the hand up. Again, we're melting the back of the heart forward. And if you want to see if you can find a little deeper back bend, hand comes to the back of the head. Exhale, release back into your low lunge. We'll hold here. When you're ready, shift the hips back. Let the foot float up. You can keep the toes reaching down as well. My preference is toes floating up. And then sitting bones reach back towards the back foot. We want a little tiny bend to this knee, no locking it. And then when you're ready, inhale to come forward. Both hands plant to the ground, back toes curl under, downward dog. Check the shoulders. Are you hunched up? Relax. Let the head, neck grow long. Inhale, come onto hands and knees. Take your knees wide. Hands stretch forward, hips shift back towards the feet. Forehead to the ground or to a block. Take one more full inhale. Full exhale. Inhale, come back up onto hands and knees. Back into your downward dog. Toes curl under, hips lift up and back. One more time, left foot floats up. Press out through your heel. Navel draws in. Bring your foot forward in between your hands. So I am starting on the left hand side this time so that you have a little bit of a better view. Because from here, from our lunge, we're going to start to turn towards the long side of the mat. Toes face forward. Use a block here under your hands. A lot of times what happens here in our wide leg forward fold, we get a little rounded and bendy in the upper back because we're trying so hard to get to the ground. If that's the case for you, you might want your block on the highest height. And instead of working to get down towards the ground, you're going to work to reach your heart forward. Keep your low back mostly flat, your sitting bones wide. If you have a little bit more space, you can start to work your way to the ground, but you can still think about reaching your heart forward towards the ground. If you're not using a block, try reaching your hands forward. Head relaxes and floats in between the arms. Inhale, come up halfway again if your hands are all the way to the ground. We're going to turn back towards the front of the mat, back the way you started, so left foot is forward. Plant your hands on the ground, step back, downward dog. So now you're going to float your right foot up, bring your foot in between the hands, pause, and then one more time you're going to turn and walk towards the long edge of your mat, facing a different direction now. But I'm going to turn and face you. So from wide leg forward bend, this time we're going to turn the toes away from each other. Knees bend. We're going to set up for goddess pose. Instead of coming into full goddess today, we're just going to do a little stretch here up for the insides of the legs. You're going to take your left hand into your thigh and press your thigh away. Drop that left shoulder. Opposite direction. Back to center. Forward fold, toes face forward, and then we're just going to go ahead and pivot back the way we came. Step back, downward dog. Inhale back onto hands and knees. We're going to do a little variation of child's pose. It's frog pose. It's not my favorite pose, but it is a really deep stretch. Keep in mind, everybody has different genetic abilities within their hips, within their whole body. So you might not look like a picture that you see when you look up this pose. You're working, or in the traditional sense, they have their calves, shins pretty much parallel to the sides of their mat. If that doesn't work for you, don't worry about it. So you're going to take your legs wide. Oh yeah, and you're going to want your bolster or a big stack of blankets and pillows here. So the legs come pretty wide. You're going to turn your feet so that they're facing away from your body like a frog. And then you're going to start to come forward. So the legs come pretty wide here. I am a lazy frog person. This is why I like the props underneath me. This is a pretty deep hip opener for me. You can also shift forward a little bit more. That might take some pressure off of your knees. Or you can explore coming back. Forward is better for me. We'll hold it here for just a couple more breaths. All right, from here, hands come about chest height, shoulders roll back, press up, draw both knees together. It doesn't have to be pretty. All right, one more time, downward dog. Pedal it out, shake it out. right, so from here, lift your right leg. You're going to cross your ankle above your left knee. And then start to walk your hands back. Flex your right toes. Try to relax in the shoulders. I know it's not easy, but drop the shoulders away from the ears. And go ahead and release. Other side. Exhale to release. Come on to hands and knees. Take knees wide. Stretch your hands forward. Forehead to the ground or a block. Inhale to rise up. And we're going to come down onto our sitting bones. All right, so we're going to start with Supta or Baddha Konasana. Supta means supine, which would be a laying on our backs. But Baddha Konasana is just seated. Soles of the feet come together. You can sit up onto a blanket. You want to walk the flesh away from your sitting bones so you can start to rock your pelvis forward. You can also reach your hands back behind you and push into the ground to rock your pelvis forward. For some people, this is way enough of a stretch for them. If you have a little more space and mobility, you can start to fold forward a little bit. And find your breath. Inhale, sit up nice and tall. We're going to take the legs wide. So you have a few variations for this pose. So legs are wide. If you have super, super tight hips, again, hands behind you, rock your pelvis forward, stay here. This might be enough. Another variation is to take one of your legs, so we'll go right side first, so left foot comes into the thigh, and this can kind of take some of the pressure off. And then you can just reach your right hand down the leg. The other option, again, if you have a little bit more mobility, you're going to reach your right hand towards your toes. You can even do peace sign fingers here underneath the calf. Left hand reaches up and over. And maybe you find your toes on the other side and work to turn the torso up towards the ceiling. So maybe you're here, maybe you're here, or maybe you're here. Any way works. Inhale, come all the way back up. We'll do the other side. Again, take the variation that works best for you. If you're going to follow me, full variation is left fingers underneath the shin or ankle, or grabbing onto the toe, reach the hand up and over. inhale, rise up. All right, so next pose, 3 variations again. So you're going to take the one that works best for your body. It is true, people have different genetic makeups of their hips. So some people's hips can open up really super wide, where other people have a narrower range of motion. And that's not you, that's not a matter of not enough yoga, it's just, that's the way you're made. So, variation 1, Sukhasana. Variation 2 is more of a fire log pose here. So for fire log, you want your bottom leg to be the shin, to be mostly parallel with the front of your mat. Other leg is going to follow it. Most people are going to want to stack something underneath their knee for this variation. A blanket, maybe. Other variation here is cow face legs. So you're going to take your bottom leg, you're going to bring it back by the opposite sitting bone. The other leg goes on the top, and you're stacking knees here. Again, any variation, you want your sitting bones back. So we're also going to do a little stretch for the upper body. So cow face arms. Now let's do eagle arms for this one. So cross your left hand over your right. Back of the hands come together. Or you're going to wrap your bottom fingers to the palm. Otherwise, a big hug, that works as well. Lots of bus stops in these poses. And then you can stay here where you are, or start to fold forward. Inhale, come all the way back up. So we're going to switch our cross. So if you stuck with Sukhasana, you're going to do the awkward cross now. Fire leg pose, opposite leg is on the bottom. Or cow face legs. So this time, right arm is on top, left arm is on the bottom. Find length through your spine. And start to fold forward. And inhale, come all the way back up. Bring your legs in front of you, feet on the ground. So I learned one time in a training that so we always talk about hip opening, right? If we were to get up from our mats and walk away with completely 100% open hips, we wouldn't walk, we'd probably fall over. So we also not only want to open these tight muscles, but we want to stabilize them as well. And this is a really super easy way to stabilize the muscles. Take your right hand into your right knee, side of your right knee. You're going to press your hand into your knee, press your knee back into your hand, and we're just going to hold for about 3 breaths. And focus on full inhales and exhales. Finding that sense of stillness and calm in your practice. And then go ahead and release. Other side, left hand presses into the knee, knee presses back. About 3 breaths. And then exhale to release. We're going to come onto our backs now. So before we take our final pose, we're going to end with a supine twist, focusing a little more on the stretch in the glutes. So you're going to draw your right knee in, right hand comes out to the right, and then gently you're going to cross the knee over the body. Now your hips can start to move. You're going to have, your bottom hip is going to lift a little bit. You're working towards stacking the hips. If you don't feel much of a stretch in your glutes, it could be that this right shoulder is following. So you want to roll that shoulder back, but also your shoulder blade is going to come onto your back. You can also turn and gaze over the right shoulder. Inhale to come back to center. Other side. Left knee draws in, right hand out to the right. Cross the knee over the body, let the hips start to stack and pivot. Again, if your left arm is following, you're going to roll that shoulder back, draw the shoulder blade onto the back body by plugging it into the opposite shoulder blade. And then maybe turn and gaze over the left arm. Inhale, come back to center. So if you're feeling like you've done enough in your hips and you want to just take a regular Shavasana, feel free. You can also prop your knees for Shavasana. But we're going to end in a supine Baddha Konasana, so Supta Baddha Konasana. There's a lot of ways to prop this pose. You can do it with your back flat on the ground. I like to use a bolster, but you can also prop your bolster with blocks at any height, so you can get up quite a bit higher. Then you want something for under the knees. I know some of you have very open hips and you like to not use anything under your knees. However, the point of this pose is not to do more work. The point of this pose is to relax, let yourself be supported by your props. So allow yourself to be taken care of and stop doing work for a little while. So come on to your back. We're going to put rolled up blankets underneath the knees. So again, when you open up, you don't feel like you're holding your knees up. If you need a little more height under your neck, another blanket, just a little bit of height can go right underneath the neck. Hands come to the sides. If you want to make it super luxurious, blankets underneath the arms. So our yoga practice kind of fits with that analogy that I was using at the beginning of class. We came to practice, we started with our breath. We started with that sense of stillness, sense of calm and peace. Maybe a lot of you started that way with everything that's going on in the world. You just kind of going with the flow. But then something inside of you threw a rock into your smooth pond, created lots of ripples. So you're feeling those emotions now, and that's okay. So our yoga practice, the physical, the movement part, it's kind of like those ripples. But if you notice, we were able to stay present through our yoga practice, while at the same time letting ourselves feel. We let ourselves feel and process and move, have our moment, but we can come back to that sense of stillness. So those ripples are starting to cease. And now we can be that mirror for other people. we can reflect that sense of stillness to them, to our kids, our spouses, our friends, our parents. Now we're going to end here in our Supta Baddha Konasana or Shavasana. And I encourage you to stay here for as long as you need, at least 5 more minutes, but as much as 15 or 20. So thank you for joining me for R&R Yoga tonight. Namaste.